Imagine living your life after 50 and feeling energized and excited about your future. Welcome to the Women in the Middle podcast, the podcast for women who are ready to figure out what they want and create the life they deserve. Here's your host and Master Certified Life Coach, Susie Rosenstein.
Hey there, today we're talking about the importance of leadership for wellness at work. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast Women in the Middle, where we talk about how to get unstuck, clear, and excited about your next chapter, especially if you're over 50 and feeling like life is way too precious to keep waiting. I'm your host, Susie Rosenstein, your Master Certified Coach and Midlife Mentor, and I am so glad to be here with you again. Now, as many of you know, my mission is to help you stop living like time doesn't matter in midlife, because it does. We cannot continue living in an autopilot fog. Life is just too short for these shenanigans. Being more intentional is where it's at. So I have a great guest interview today. We're going to take a deep dive into the importance of leading for wellness and thriving at work. Work is one of those places where you may be showing up on autopilot. Perhaps you've even lost track of who you wanted to become, especially now in midlife. This happened to me right on time, around 50. No surprise. Well, it is possible to thrive at work and focus on overall well-being. Leadership can make a huge difference. But just quick, there are two things I want to make sure that you know about. As a listener of the Women in the Middle podcast, I wanted to make sure that you know how we can work together. You might know that I help midlife professional women get unstuck and reconnect with their desires so that they can move forward with clarity, confidence, and courage, fully honoring the privilege of aging and embracing what is still possible. It's so important to stop wasting any more time feeling stuck. In the end, it's all about regret-proofing your life, my friend. And the fastest way I know how to rediscover joy and purpose after 50, that is for sure. Coaching is great. It can be so helpful. I have a variety of options available, both private and group coaching. The best thing to do if you're curious about what it would be like to coach together and actually put yourself first is to please reach out and see what might be a good fit for you. Head over to www.talktosusie.com. And the other thing is that I now have a quiz that will help you find out what's keeping you stuck and understand what your future self is craving. It's free, it's fun, and it's fast. Go to www.midlifequiz.com and help yourself get the insight you need to go after what you're excited about in your next chapter. Again, head over to www.midlifequiz.com. Okay, now let's dive in. Today's interview is about leading for wellness and thriving at work in midlife. My guest today is Dr. Patricia Grabarek. We're going to be digging into the importance of leading and leadership for wellness and creating a corporate culture where everyone thrives. In today's hustle culture, burnout feels inevitable. But what if it wasn't? Patricia Grabarek is the author of Leading for Wellness, How to Create a Team Culture Where Everyone Thrives. She's the co-founder of Workr Beeing and a seasoned industrial organizational psychologist specializing in workplace wellness, organizational culture, employee engagement, diversity and inclusion, and leadership development. With a background in both consulting and internal roles, Dr. Grabarek has led people analytics and talent management initiatives for more than 60 organizations across various industries. Her work focuses on research-based strategies to improve well-being, retention, performance, and diversity efforts. As a leading expert in workplace well-being, Dr. Grabarek translates cutting-edge research into real-world strategies to help professionals reclaim their time, protect their mental health, and still advance in their careers. Named one of Culture Amp's top 25 emerging culture creators for 2024, Dr. Grabarek's insights have appeared in the Los Angeles Times, CBS News, and CBC Radio. She holds a PhD and MS in Industrial Organizational Psychology from Penn State and a BA in Psychology from UCLA. I have a feeling you're going to really relate to this episode. I mean, come on, who hasn't been in a work situation that was less than desirable when it came to workplace wellness, at least on one occasion, right? I know you're going to appreciate and enjoy this interview. Hi, Patricia. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Women in the Middle podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited that you are an actual research scientist, and we're going to talk about wellness and leading for wellness and just being a little happier and more balanced at work. Great topic for the midlife gal.
I think so. I think it's such an important topic for all of us since we spend so much time at work and, what we need and wellness changes over time. And so it's important for us to take some time to self-reflect and figure out what that looks like for us, whatever stage we're in.
I love that. Being intentional about it. What a concept.
It's huge. I think we have a tendency of just kind of letting things, life go. But if we can be intentional, it can make all the difference.
Exactly. So tell me why, how did you get so interested in taking a deep dive into researching this kind of thing?
Well, we spend a lot of time at work. I think that's a big guiding factor for me. We spend so much time working. We have relationships at work. It brings a lot of stress into our lives, and all that spills over into our personal lives. So we can't thrive in our lives in general if our work lives are not great. It's hard to kind of disentangle the two. I know a lot of people like to have, a silo between both worlds, but you can't suddenly not be stressed if you had a horrible day at work when you get home. So I think it's really important for us to think about how we can create effective and healthy workplaces so people can feel great there, feel accomplished, feel positive, and then go home and have a fulfilling life at home too.
It's so true. I work with this one concept that comes up all the time. It's like a midlife operating system. And the idea is that the way we figured out how to work, how to function in the world when we were in our 20s and 30s is different than what typically works for us over 50. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're talking about. So we need to connect with ourselves again and figure out, does this schedule work? Does the way I'm bringing work home work? Does the way that I'm working with teams work? What about the way that we as a workplace deal with special requests when people need to have extra time to support their aging parents? Is that the kind of thing that you are talking about?
Yeah, you're spot on. One of the things that we learned in our research, we talked to a variety of people, different ages, different backgrounds, different industries, and we learned that how people define workplace wellness varies dramatically. Each person has their own definition, what really matters to them, what boundaries they care about. And not only do they have their own unique definition, but it changes over time. When you have a newborn, what you care about, what you're thinking about is very different than when you have a high school kid, right? When you have aging parents versus parents that are, still mobile and helping you instead, right? Helping you with your newborn, for example, right?
So true.
You have a very different life depending on where you are in that phase and everything around you. And even if you're the same age, right? You maybe had children later in life or had them earlier or what have you. So what you need is still going to be very unique. And taking that moment, as I mentioned, to self-reflect and really think about what boundaries do you care about right now in this moment, and being okay with the fact that in 2 years, it might be completely different. So just checking in with yourself and making sure that you're living the life you want to live is so important.
One of the things, I have another podcast called Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, and it's the reality of running a business over 50 as an entrepreneur. So all the midlife stuff that comes up and gets in the way. And one of the most common things that women talk about is energy, the shift in energy and how that ideally could be reflected in a workday. Can you tell us a little bit about the kinds of things that women are looking for at work as they age?
So I think what you just touched on is really important with the energy piece. It's what are you interested in putting your energy into? I've, even just myself as I've started aging and as I talk to a lot of colleagues and coworkers, you see what you are willing to put up with changes a lot, right? In your 20s, everything's brand new. You're trying to figure it out, and you are going to take a lot more crap from people than you will when you get older because you realize you don't have to put up with that. So how you use your time and your energy is so important to, again, be intentional about as you think about it as you age, but also just recognizing that it's okay to have those shifts. And I've seen a lot of really strong leaders, women that are, in their 50s or older that just communicate that super clearly, right? I'm not willing to deal with that anymore. And I'm, going to be doing this instead. And I think that's so powerful as a younger woman to see too. So I think there's a great opportunity for women over 50 to model this kind of behavior, right? And say hey, at some point what you care about changes, and that's okay. And embodying it and living it is great. and helping other women see that so that when they get to that stage, they're not like afraid to embrace that as well, I think is huge. It's impacted me massively as an employee to have leaders that are so open about how things shift for them over time.
Yeah, because we have such a mindset about what is possible to change and what isn't possible to change. And I notice that especially when I look at me and my kids' work experiences in their 20s, the way they think about stuff is so different. Where women my age often think about, we're very loyal. Typically, we appreciate and value being at a job for a long time. I was at my last job for 19 years. And I remember when I met the first person I met who'd been at a job 19, 20 years when I was 19, I was shocked. It's like, oh my God, you've been at that same job for as long as I've been alive. I just couldn't even get my head around it. So how, just this idea of what people understand to be possible in the workplace. If we don't have role models, sometimes you don't even know what that is.
Completely agree with you. And it's interesting that you touched on that kind of age difference too when it comes to tenured organizations. We do see that people in their 20s, maybe even early 30s are job hopping a lot more. They're still trying to figure out where they want to be, right? And when you get a little older, you have a bit more maturity, more understanding of what matters to you and what kind of work you like to do and what kind of impact you want to have. So then you do see people start to stay in roles a little longer. I think part of it is they found a fit that makes sense, but also, in your 20s, you probably have fewer responsibilities. When you get into your 40s, your responsibilities increase. So sometimes job hopping is also just not possible or not realistic when you have a lot of other things going on in your personal life. So you can see just everything we've talked about. There's so many shifts in how you pay attention to work and where work falls in your priority list. That varies a lot. And you see as people age, as women get older, getting closer to retirement age, we actually see women tend to want to mentor and teach others in a way that's super fascinating, but also really helpful. Like you said, seeing those role models and kind of understanding how other people have gone through their careers can be a massive help for younger women as they're trying to figure their things out in their 20s.
So much. And I've heard so many midlife women talk about how fulfilling being a mentor is.
Yes, it is. It can have a huge positive impact for you. You feel like you're leaving a legacy behind. And everything that my co-founder, Katina Sawyer, and I do in terms of our research is around leadership. And you could be a leader in a formal role, but it could also be mentoring informal roles. And leaders have a huge impact on how employees focus on their wellness and figure out how do they create boundaries and flexibility for themselves. So showing that as a leader or even as a mentor, like how do you do that well, can influence other people to take care of themselves better too. And again, then you're leaving this really great legacy behind where people are living more fulfilling lives because of how you're able to influence them.
Oh, yeah. I want to talk about that a little bit more because the other piece that's so different now is the amount of people working at home. And I find that boundaries, like if you have a hybrid job or if you're just working at home, boundaries about work are very difficult. A lot of my clients talk about this. So some of us don't even have a door. Like we might have a space in the house, but if at least a door is a physical boundary. But still, between tech and this situation of working at home, before you know it, the boundaries can be gone and you can be burnt out. So what comes up in the research about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, boundaries are critical to not only build for yourself, like define, identify, like we talked about being very intentional, like what really matters to me, but then trying to make sure everybody else knows about them and maintaining and not budging on those boundaries. Because as soon as you budge, then people start to see them as less strict and they're going to keep trying to take from those same boundaries. So what we learn in our research is you need to, again, define them, talk about them consistently, keep them in place, and revisit them from time to time. Because as we mentioned, things might change over time. When you're creating those boundaries too, I think it also, as we talked about with leaders, you're now showing others that that's okay to do. And so if you're very clear and explicit, then let's say you don't want to check email after 7 p.m. Think about ways you can make sure you don't do that. Do you turn off notifications on your phone so you don't get email notifications? Do you maybe don't have email from work at all on your phone? Like some people do that. I applaud them. I'm not that person. But, if you can turn off the notifications or keep that away from you, then you're going to be able to keep those boundaries a little bit more easily because you're not tempted by the constant ability to stay connected that we have today. So thinking through what are those little behaviors and those little things you can do to adjust how you're interacting with technology can help you with those boundaries. And then other people will start seeing that you actually aren't responding to emails after 7 p.m. So they'll stop sending you emails after 7 p.m., right? They'll start to schedule them for you. Or you can show that behavior too. You can start scheduling emails. Ask people when they tend to log off and don't email them after that time. Maybe they log off at 5. So now you schedule your emails to see them in the morning versus having it sent to them. So just starting to practice these kinds of little behaviors can help other people do the same towards you.
I love that. I just am new to scheduling emails. In the last few years, I started to, I know how to schedule them in my business, but for connecting with people, I have an urge sometimes. I'll see something come in late at night and I have a huge urge to answer it. And sometimes I'm successful. Sometimes I at least schedule a response for 8 a.m. just to get it off my plate. But why am I reading it in the first place is the better question.
Yeah, it is. And it's, it depends on the person. Like there's this concept of integrators versus segmenters and how they like to split their time between like personal life and work. And I think a lot of us are becoming integrators because of technology. So basically you might work a few hours, then go to the gym, then come back and do a little more work and then go and make dinner for your family, then do some more work, right? So you're kind of switching back and forth between the two. Segmenters prefer very strict boundaries, right? So they want to start working at 8. They want to be done at 4. They don't want to be interrupted with personal life in the middle of that. And they just want to work and focus on that. And then afterwards, they don't want work to interrupt them at all. So these two groups of people exist. Again, technology is pushing a lot of us into the integrator space, but it's important for you to reflect and think, is that really who you are? Or is technology and the culture of your organization making you that? And if you are not an integrator, but you're being forced to be one, it's actually much worse for your mental health and your workplace wellness and just overall well-being than if you are able to kind of stick to your preference. So taking some time to reflect on what you care about in that space helps you think through what are the boundaries that I need to be setting. But even integrators need to have an end time. A few hours before bed is critical so that you can sleep better. So I think just figuring out what that balance looks like and then knowing if you're working with a segmenter, perfect person that you should schedule emails for, right? Because you don't want to interrupt them. And then a segmenter knows maybe at noon, this integrator is not around because they're an integrator and they can understand why you're not there and kind of balance, how they communicate with you as well. So they're not feeling frustrated that maybe you're not as responsive in the middle of the day because you are integrating instead.
One of the challenges I've had at home with boundaries is, well, first of all, the people that I share my home with. There's that problem. But it's the pets. Even when we got on our call, the one pet thing happened and also the doorbell rang. And so it's so, I find it difficult to set boundaries at home that encompass all the situations that come up. Sometimes it's so frustrating and it's so stressful because I try and I have everything. It looks like it's under control, but then it's not. What suggestions do you have for managing your space when you're in a hybrid situation or you're working from home?
Yeah, I think remote work definitely lends itself better to integrators because of those things, right? Things that just kind of influence your day because of the natural setting that you're in. I think for things like the doorbell and things that if you weren't home, what would they do? They would just leave, right? You can do that. It feels weird to do that, to not open the door if you're at home. But if you are saying this is my work time and I don't want to be interrupted by personal things, you just ignore it. It's going to take a little practice for sure. Pets are harder because they know you're there and they're going to keep bothering you. So I think for them, there's maybe some solutions. If you have a pet sitter that could come and help from time to time. We take our dog to daycare, for example, once a week and And that helps. So he gets a bunch of energy out before we're bringing him home and we have a whole day where we don't have to worry about taking him out or, you know, even though we love giving him cuddles, but we don't have to give him cuddles during the day that day. So those kinds of things can help support, just like with, you would with kids, right? You would take them to daycare, find some other activity for them so that they hopefully wouldn't interrupt as much. So there's things to consider that way, but trying to figure out how you can make your space a little more sacred, even if you don't have a door, so that it's just for your work.
Like Fort Knox,
can help
like maybe I'll go to a hotel. Maybe that will work.
A hotel. Some people do invest in like those, I forgot why am I blanking on the term? WeWork type things.
Yeah.
Those can help. Some people
those
go to coffee shops.
Those shared workspace things.
Yes.
Yeah, the coffee shop if you don't have to do Zoom calls. I know one of my sons was doing that, and then there were Zoom calls, and it couldn't happen.
Yeah, it does make it harder if you have to talk on the phone. But if you need some focus time, and you might be interrupted because there'll be people around you, but they're not going to be talking to you necessarily, right?
Right.
Put on your headphones, and you could maybe get some stuff that way.
Part of the problem is my own lack of effective planning. So I'm pretty good at planning, but the doorbell that happened today was a schedule got changed with somebody who cleans the yard, and it got shifted to today. And because it's not a normal day, it didn't occur to me that it was going to affect me at work. So even though I reviewed it last night and I reviewed it this morning, I missed it. So sometimes I find that to have your own back in these situations, you really have to be so good with your calendar, like to really appreciate everything that's happening. I was just thinking too, I don't use this feature yet, but I understand that Amazon has this garage feature now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be a way of not being interrupted by a common doorbell situation.
Yeah, that does help, right? Because they now have the little code. They can drop off the package in the garage. But I think you're right. Planning is a big piece of it when you're working remotely or hybrid. Especially hybrid, I think, because you have to switch between being at your house and being at work. And so do I have a commute or no commute? And what does that look like for my day? One thing I encourage people all the time, and, our research backs this up, or a lot of research backs it up, that when you're remote, you tend to work more hours. So if you are hybrid or if you are remote, think about what your commute time would have been and don't add work to that time. You don't have, just because you would normally be driving at 8 to 8:30, let's say, doesn't mean you have to work from 8 to 8:30. So try to keep that space for yourself before you start your day. Like, you don't have to add more hours just because you're remote. But we have a tendency of doing that. It's so normal. So trying to be very intentional with your time in general is my recommendation, kind of across the board, as you hear.
Definitely. So another thing that you mentioned is the important role of role modeling from women leaders, especially for women. And one of the things that comes up so much with women over 50 is the caregiving responsibility for senior parents and how that impacts work. It creates so much stress because usually the work situation isn't as flexible as the situation that's needed for caregiving and doctor's appointments and all the stress and paperwork and everything that goes into supporting your parents and transitioning whatever is going on with them. So what do you say to that? Like, is this kind of flexibility something that's negotiated if it's a new job, or if you are male managers and leaders as aware of this stuff as women leaders as we age? What do you see in that sort of situation?
I do think when you touched on the gender difference, there is a lot of variability in how people view caregiving. And I think a lot of men often are not in those same positions, right? We hear that daughters are typically the ones that are taking care of their parents. So unless they don't have a sister, they're probably not in that position. Or if they haven't seen their wife go through it, for example, they may not kind of understand the caregiving piece. I think what's really important is creating strong relationships with your leadership to be able to communicate what's going on. But the other thing that a leader can do is create a microculture within their own team. So that I think is very important. And as a leader that maybe has caregiving responsibilities and has a lot of things that they have to be flexible with. If you create a microculture on your team where everybody's very transparent about their boundaries, their needs, you're having very strong relationships with your employees, they will help you. Like it's, you can create flexibility for yourself by having a great team and being flexible with them, right? So if you're at a phase where you're now caregiving for older parents, maybe you have someone on your team that has a young child, for them, what's really important is drop off, right? You give them some flexibility, you cover things during that time period. But then for you need to step out in the middle of the day for an appointment, like you mentioned. So now those individuals that don't have those same responsibilities can step in and help out and kind of be the first point of contact during those moments for you. So if you create a really great cohesive team, they all support each other, right? And employees want to support leaders that care about them. They're much more loyal to those leaders that really take care of their wellness and will step up and help out when you have something on your plate. So I think that can make a huge difference if you can create that kind of a culture where people are helping each other on your team, and they'll start to help each other too. So you're not the only one that has to step in when someone has a challenge that they're facing, or their kid randomly gets sick and they now have to be gone. You're not the only one that has to do everything, because the team has that kind of microculture where other people will step in and help. So you're kind of all helping each other out to balance things outside of work.
Oh, that's so good. What can you tell us about stress signals that you might be ignoring? You mentioned this in your research, and I would just love to know more about that.
So stress signals from yourself or from others? Like you're ignoring other people's stress signals?
When you're nearing burnout.
Okay.
But that's an interesting question to flip it. Yeah. We can do that too.
Yeah. I mean, there's kind of both, right? Think for yourself, if you're starting to feel more tired than normal and you don't know why, that's a good one. The other thing is if you loved your job, right? So you really loved your job and suddenly you're becoming more cynical about your work. That's a big sign of burnout. That's what I think people don't really talk about, right? You can think about being physically tired, mentally tired, but the cynicism that comes in with burnout is often a surprise for people. And it's just suddenly they're like, well, I hate my job. And it's like, well, why do you hate your job? Did you hate your job? Did something happen? Like, yeah, maybe your boss changed and they're horrible and what have you, but it could just simply be that you're getting to the point of burnout. And now because you're so exhausted, you have this cynicism around you in the work. So I think paying attention to how your emotions about the job change is a good sign to notice.
Wow, I haven't heard that before, but I can totally relate. And I'm thinking back a little bit to when I was in my job too long. And I described my situation as not feeling content anymore. There was definitely some cynicism, but I just wasn't as comfortable with it. But I wonder if it was the same thing. I'm not sure. It's fascinating. Yeah, because I was there a long time. Another thing that you mentioned in your notes is micro breaks. Can you tell us a little bit more what a micro break is and why you can have such a big result from it?
Yeah, taking breaks from work throughout the day can really help your energy levels. And even like these micro breaks are like 1 to 2 minutes. And there's been research around how you use that time that can really help boost your energy. And there's a couple of key ones that I'll mention. So one is mindfulness. So I know some people have a hard time getting into meditation, but 1 to 2 minutes is very short. Close your eyes, play a guided meditation, and that will help you block out everything else around you and get you into a mental space that's a little bit easier to handle any stressors that come into your day, right? And it just kind of resets you. So those are so helpful. But another micro break that was studied recently was around just watching funny animal videos. So not necessarily scrolling nonstop on TikTok, but like more actively being like, this is a video I like. These are like little funny things I like. And even just watching that for a few minutes, again, just completely gets you to disconnect from work. So you're not thinking about work. That's the ultimate goal, right? Is don't think about work for 2 minutes. Think about something else that brings you joy. And whether that's watching a video, whether that's the mindfulness, even like reading a chapter of a book, listening to a bit of a podcast that you like, calling a friend for 5 minutes, those kinds of things can really help you boost some energy because it brings like a light of positivity to your day and helps you kind of manage stress and be a little more resilient over time.
Oh my gosh, a funny animal video. That's perfect for me.
Me too. I have so many of them.
I love that so much. Something I do as well is I'm in a split level house. So when I need a quick break, I'll just do a fast walk around the house. I go up the halfway. It's the Brady Bunch around here, right, with the house. So I just go up and down flights, just do a complete walkabout, and it's like a change of scenery, even though it's brief. Or
Hmm.
I'll go out back and I'll weed a little bit. I'll pull some of my weeds out of my garden bed just for a few minutes. I find that relaxing. It's a break, except then my hands are dirty, but that's okay. Go wash my hands.
You can wash them. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I,
And
I
I think
love that.
what, yeah. And I think what you're mentioning there is like, those are all activities where you're not glued to your technology that you're working with, right? So for people in the types of jobs that we're talking about, right? You're in front of a computer all the time. So getting something away from the computer, yeah, funny animal video is probably on your phone. So that's not quite the same. But if you can get away from your computer, that's where you're going to see the best magic for sure. So I love that, taking a walk around. And like you said, sometimes you have a different space in your house. It's like not your workspace. So going into that space, going onto the balcony, into the backyard, those kinds of things can really help you.
And playing with your pets is a huge one because, like, my guy's sleeping right now, but he's big, he's entertaining, he's so sweet. So I love hanging with him. And I also have this little parrot. I'll go over and just do a few little, get her to talk a little bit with all the little things I've taught her to
Aw,
say over the years. Get a little kiss, she'll give me a kiss. It's
that's
it's
cute.
really cute and it's a lovely little break.
And actually, I know we talked about pets potentially being disruptive, but there's not a ton of research on this, but there's a little bit of research around pets at work and how they can help manage stress. Because we know, right? There's emotional support animals for a reason. It's because they bring us a lot of joy and unconditional love in a way that you don't get from your colleagues, I hope.
Who else is giving me
So
a kiss in the middle of the day? Nobody.
exactly. So animals can really help manage stress at work. So there's definitely benefits to what you just described too.
Yeah, so good. So, what would you say is the most important thing you can do if you are starting to feel less comfortable, less content, less happy at work?
I feel like I keep harping on this like self-reflection piece, but I think that's an important first step. So knowing why, understanding why you're feeling that way. Is it something in the environment that's changed? Is it something about you that's changed? Have your boundaries shifted? What do you need? Once you identify that, then you can figure out how to solve the problem. If you really are getting to burnout, there's a few recovery tactics that are super important. So when you think about how do you recover at the end of a workday, for example, the fours, there's detachment, which we've kind of talked about, right? Fully detaching from work, relaxation, which is what we always think about, like binging Netflix, right? You're just chilling, sitting in a bathtub, whatever that looks like for you. But then there's two that people don't talk about as often. So one is control. What helps us feel less exhausted and less stressed out is having some control. So you mentioned, for example, really understanding your calendar and figuring things out, right? Those kinds of things, like those behaviors of getting in control of something, whether it's that, whether it's cleaning your house because now you feel more control that your house is an environment that you like, right? Those types of behaviors can really help you feel recovered. But the number one recovery tactic is one called mastery. And it's basically learning something new, but it's not learning something new that's work related, but learning something new that you're excited about and will make you feel accomplished. So it could be mastering a new recipe. It could be a new language. It could be learning how to crochet a scarf, whatever that looks like for you. Can vary a lot, but I think it's going to be the most impactful. So if you're having a really stressful time at work, or if you're starting to notice some of those burnout signs, take some time to find a great activity outside of work that will help you feel that mastery.
Trisha, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I'll never forget this one episode I did where I interviewed a psychologist who focused on long-term relationships.
Mm.
And I'll link this in the show notes because I can't recall the episode right now, but she said that one of the most important things you can do is to do something novel together. So this
Mm.
idea of novelty, I think is what you're getting at a little bit, right? And I love that because especially as older and wiser women, um, we can just get into doing the same. But to put yourself in a situation where you're learning something new, you're a beginner again, and you found something that you like, whatever it is, it can be so rewarding. I've certainly seen this with my
Mhm.
clients, and it's there for you. Like the world is there for you. But when you get into this rut and you're so distracted and maybe stressed or burned out, it's hard to think that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really easy for us to lose our hobbies. Like that's, I think, something that happens to a lot of people as they start to work.
Yeah.
And those hobbies bring us rewards, right? We feel accomplished. We enjoy the process of learning and getting better at something. So let's bring back those hobbies and find new hobbies. You know, maybe one hobby no longer serves you because you're not as interested in it anymore. Find a new one and keep playing around. Maybe you'll, discover new skills that you didn't know you could grow and have. I know a lot of people like my cousin's a great gardener, right? So that's her thing, and she kind of gets more and more complex plants that she wants to grow to learn how to take care of them in a way that some other plants maybe don't. I mean, I don't know nothing about plants, but I know that when you look at her garden, went from like very simple plants to like more and more difficult plants to grow. So I think thinking about how you can continue to expand in your hobby too. If you have been doing something for a long time that you really love, how can you continue to get deeper in that skill set as well?
I that is so true. So we've had aquariums. I've had an aquarium since I was 10. And
Oh.
recently in the last couple of years, and sorry, I'll just go back 1 second. So we've had an aquarium, and what tends to happen is kind of like sailboats. There are certain points of your life where you want to get the bigger one. You go a little bigger. So it's inches instead of feet, like it is with boats. But so we ended up with a 90-gallon tank over the years. And what's fascinating is I'm in charge of the fish community. My husband is in charge of the water chemistry and plants. And then recently, one of my kids got interested, and he is
Hmm.
taking it to a whole different level. He's got a planted tank. He's experimenting with plants that we never even looked at. And so together, we're being influenced by his new hobby, and he loves having a new hobby. But we're learning so much about our hobby as well. It's really fun. I've also have some fish now that have babies, and so there's this whole other
Ooh.
level of activity going on in the fish tank. And it's a fish that the behavior is so different. It's a crebensis, and they have a very different behavior than the other freshwater tropical that we have. They're cichlids. Anyway, blah blah blah. It's a lot of fun. And this hobby has been very different for us as a result of my son getting really interested in the hobby. And he's taken it in a different direction. So fun.
I love that. I think that you've touched on something really great too, because, mastery is so important, but social connection in general is really important. So if you're able to combine multiple of these things, right? Have great social connection while you're doing a hobby. Oh my gosh, that's going to make it for an even better impact, right? Because now you've got, you're feeling not just the sense of accomplishment for the hobby that you're doing, but you're also like having these stronger, deeper relationships with people that you care about, that can have a big impact on your mental health.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. So we were walking the dog recently, and I had posted, sometimes I'll just post like 30 seconds of my fish tank on Facebook because it's so relaxing and pretty. Just a close up, like you're
Yeah.
in the tank. And one of my neighbors saw it. Now, we know these neighbors more just acquaintances, but it turns out that they're total fish nerds too. We didn't know.
Oh,
We didn't know. So we
I
ran
love
into
that.
them recently while we were walking the dog, and it was a whole another level of, oh my gosh, we need to get together. I want to see your tanks. You can come see ours. Do you want any of these babies? They're like, well, I don't know, but I've got some babies too. It was just so much fun to find out something new about people that you've known for years.
Yeah. And then you build a sense of community around this thing that you really love, right? So, again, super helpful for your well being overall is to have that sense of community, have something that you love and passionate about. And it doesn't always have to be about work.
Right. And this is all while work may not be that great. You're looking to have more fun at work or to be happier or more fulfilled. So good. I love that you were able to bring some of the research findings to thinking about thriving at work. It was a really fun conversation. Tell us about your book and how we can get it.
Oh, yeah. Well, my book, it's called Leading for Wellness, and you can get it pretty much at any bookstore, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Bookshop, what have you. It's all about our research on how to create a thriving work environment for your team. So it's geared towards leaders, but again, it could be leaders that are not necessarily formal in title, but have influence. And ultimately, it's a guide on the types of behaviors that create that positive and healthy work environment, that create those microcultures I talked about, where the teams are helping each other and supporting each other and really allowing for flexibility that's individual based on the person's needs. So yeah, I hope people pick it up. We have a bunch of worksheets in there, action planning, so that you can take what you're learning and put it to action right away.
That's awesome. So that's Leading for Wellness, How to Create a Team Culture Where Everyone Thrives. You can find it just about anywhere, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. And how can we get a hold of you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time posting. Also, workrbeeing.com is my company's website. So Workr Beeing, WORKR BEEING. And you can email us there. There's a contact form. So if you have any questions or need anything from me, you can find me there.
Amazing. Patricia, thank you so much. It was a really fun interview. I love the work you're doing. And I know I got some good tips today. And I'm sure as a listener today, you also did. So check out the book. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, that's it for this episode. So many great ideas, right? I left this interview feeling encouraged. How about you? As Patricia believes we spend so much of our lives at work, we deserve to thrive there as well as outside of work. I couldn't agree more. All right, thanks so much for listening to the Women in the Middle show. My focus as your regret-proofing midlife coach is to help you waste less valuable time and get on with the good stuff. Remember, being the queen of your brain domain is the best way to be, my friend. It's time to stop waiting for the right moment and start creating the happiness, excitement, joy, and fulfillment that you crave. Reach out if you'd like to talk about coaching together. I have several options that might be a good fit for you. Head over to www.talktosusie.com. And don't forget to check out my new midlife quiz to discover what's been keeping you stuck and learn what your future self is craving. Go to www.midlifequiz.com. For show notes and links, go to susierosenstein.com and click on the podcast tab and look for episode 437. You'll also see a link there for my other show, The Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, which is all about the reality of running your business when you're a midlife gal. It's also on iTunes, Spotify, and all the places. Let's do this, ladies. It's time for you to put yourself first, one thought at a time. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.